I'm Aubrey Sitterson, and this is SKALD. You're listening to the only story that matters. This is oral storytelling in its purest form. One story written by one guy and recorded in one single, flawless take. SKALD is serialized, but starting with this episode isn't just okay, it's encouraged. Afterward, once you're hooked, feel free to dive into the back catalog of episodes or pick up one of the prose ebooks available exclusively on Amazon. This isn't me reading you a story. This is me telling you a story. This is SKALD, part 69. They hung there, scowling down at him, like giant, ill-tempered bats, their heavy black cloaks swaying in the breeze, the proctors gazing at him in utter disgust, in utter contempt. They hung there, upside down. But no, not upside down. At least they weren't. He felt something hard and unyielding on the back of his head, felt the dirt between his fingers. He laid upon the ground, and they simply stared down at him. Yeah, I'm moving. Master Ho rolled over onto his side, the very ground spinning beneath him. He winced, waiting for his dehydrated, hungover body to catch up with the rest of the world. It was just napping. No vagrancy here. Master Ho grabbed the robe of the closest proctor, a sour-faced, sinewy young man that was too horrified to react when the bleary-eyed lush began to climb up him. Though the boy couldn't respond, his superior could and did. We're not here because you're loitering, but we could be. It would be well within our rights. Master Ho, in a supreme show of willpower, forced his legs to plant themselves beneath him and then, tentatively, released the young proctor before him. Within your rights? Within your rights? Though it pained him, though his eyes felt as if they'd burst out of his skull, he began to raise his voice in indignation. Does your lady now lay claim to the forests as well? To the rocks, the trees, the streams? Master Ho gestured broadly, but his self-satisfied expression changed to one of confusion as he looked around at the people, the merchant stalls, and the city streets. You don't even know where you are. Disdain dripped from the head proctor's lips as he spoke. Master Ho began to search the ground around him, distressed. And even worse, I have no idea where my gourd is. But before Ho could complete his hunt, two proctors took him by his arms, gently but firmly, as their superior spoke once again. You don't look or smell like you need it. Now come on. Master Ho knew that he could beat the two that held him. He could beat them, the scrawny young boy, and even his heavily built superior. But if he did, they'd send more. They'd always send more, because there always were more. Those so eager for strength and power that they'd take it in numbers and batons rather than in technique and in skill. Given long enough, he could defeat them. His stomach growled audibly. But he had such an awful lot to drink the night before. Master Ho relaxed his body, allowing the proctors to hold him up in his entirety as he merely mimed the act of walking. If they were assigned to carry him, let them earn their pittance. He laughed. All right, boys, all right. Careful with the joints now. Where are we headed? The head proctor spoke without looking back, and as he did so, the smile left Master Ho's face. Our Lady would have words with you. The proctors stood just inside the door, wheezing, struggling to catch their breath after dragging Master Ho's limp form up flight after flight of stairs, after conveying that laughing drunk all the way to the top of that massive tower, that gleaming obelisk, the one that towered high above Ravenna, gazing out to the farthest reaches of that mighty city-state. Master Ho reclined upon a chaise, sipping from a golden goblet, partaking of the hair of the very dog that had bit him the night before. I don't understand. He looked up, grinning. Standing over him, clutching her gnarled staff, the pearl atop it filled with swirling clouds, the Lady of Ravenna, Caleria herself, sighed. You should drink less and listen more. She turned and hobbled to the simple wooden chair she liked best, and she lowered herself down upon it. The centaurs had been growing bolder. Master Ho scoffed. Centaurs? Centaurs? They're savages, primitives, nothing more. Caleria frowned as something hot and furious danced in her eyes. You would do well not to underestimate the power of savagery, Ho. Master Ho took a long drink, then snapped at a still wheezing proctor and pointed to his now empty goblet. Even then, the centaurs, they keep to their lands, to the wilds. They have no interest in Ravenna. They have no interest in us. What does any of it matter? Caleria looked around the room, sucking her teeth, still inexplicably as blindingly white as the day they first tore through her gums. We've kept it quiet as we can. But they've begun to encroach upon Ravenna proper. She turned her fiery gaze back to Master Ho. Encroach? A few bad hunts is probably all. What difference does it make? We have walls, don't we? The walls will hold. Caleria sighed. Not if we don't defend them. And to do that, we need bodies. We need soldiers. Well-trained soldiers. Master Ho felt something growing in the pit of his stomach. Concern, fear, a reluctance to face the truth, to admit to himself that he knew exactly where this was going. What are you saying? Caleria smiled. You're not as dumb as you act, but you're also not as smart as you think. She let loose a self-satisfied chuckle. I'm conscripting your students. Master Ho leapt to his feet, stopped, braced himself to hang on as the room spun, and then he spoke with as much righteous fury as he could summon up upon a stomach full of nothing but bile and wine. This is outrageous. You can't. There were proctors, having mostly caught their breath, stepped forward. Caleria stayed seated, unconcerned. I can, and I shall. The well-being of Ravenna is far more important than that of your school. Master Ho sputtered, furious. But you can't. Recruit your thugs from some other school. He began to count off his fellow masters upon his fingers. Lu, Chan, Hung. Take any of them. Take all of them. Take their students. My students. My style. Master Ho brushed his hair back from his face. They're the best. They're exquisite. Don't you see? Caleria nodded slowly. I do. And that is exactly why I must have them. The time may come that I have need for second, third, even fourth best. But that time is not today. We must stop the centaurs quickly and decisively. I will have your students, Ho. Driven to such distraction, he forgot the wine that still filled his goblet. Ho swallowed hard upon his dry throat. This will ruin me. Caleria laughed. Is it the wine that makes you so melodramatic? You could have another class of students by lunchtime. They'd leave your competitors' schools and come running to you. Master Ho rubbed his eyes. No. You don't understand. He looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Please, tell me, when do you need them? Caleria, having delivered her message, began to stand slowly. I need them yesterday. My proctors will take them where they can do the most good. Master Ho, with a quickness belied by his miserable state, stepped toward Caleria, and he placed his hand upon her shoulder. Please, my lady. Though they couldn't get there in time to intercept him, the proctors leapt forward quick enough to interrupt Ho's pleading. But before they could act further, before they could even speak, Ho struck back with his elbow, connecting directly in the first proctor's solar plexus. And as the other proctor looked on, as he gazed, horrified at the speed at which this lush had dropped his companion, Ho swung his head out, smashing the bony side of his skull into the proctor's nose, eliciting a sickening crunch that served to muffle his pained howl. Ho turned back to Caleria, begging her, "Please, my lady, an additional..." He winced as he forced his brain to figure out what day it was. "An additional 2 days. Please, just until the tournament. They can leave directly afterward. I promise you." The Lady of Ravenna brushed Master Ho's hand off of her arm. "The tournament? Is that what this is about?" Master Ho, tears welling up in his eyes as he saw his future collapse in front of him, saw everything he had built begin to dissolve. He spoke gently, desperately. "Please, I beg you. My school must win the tournament. We need the prize." Caleria laughed. "You teach your students in the forest, and they pay you in wine and food. You don't even have a building. What could you possibly need the prize money for?" The tavern was dark and full of smoke, but Master Ho had given his eyes no time to adjust. He didn't even go to the bar and ask for wine, an act that was as natural to him as breathing. Instead of wasting time, instead of wasting money, he walked quickly, deliberately, to the back of the tavern, to a corner cloaked in darkness. He walked to the unoccupied table. He pulled out a chair and he did what he had to do. He did what he must do. He faced the darkness. "I need extra time." To hear him speak thus, with apology, fear, and shame in his voice, would have shocked his students, those who only knew him as the laughing, inscrutable master of the distracting strike and the mercy blow. "More time." The voice came from that ineffable darkness, from a black so dark that it threatened to swallow up what little light existed in that murky tavern. "We all want more time, Ho, but so rarely do we get what we want." Ho's stomach churned as he watched that disgusting, unnatural creature, watched Yardoon unfold his spider-like limbs and emerge from the darkness. But emerge wasn't the right word, because Yardoon didn't move forward, didn't move at all, except to stretch out those long limbs covered in short, coarse fur, the same fur that covered his head, that covered his face, that covered his entire body, a body that now, in motion, Master Ho could just barely pick out from the darkness. "We already gave you more time. Until the tournament, you said. Just a little bit longer. You said. You asked us. You begged us." Yardoon flashed a wicked grin, a flash of too bright white inside that endless pool of darkness. "And we obliged. with interest, of course. Master Ho swallowed hard, regretting his choice to skip the bar. Yes, but now I have to ask. He corrected himself. I have to beg for more time. Yardoon began to chuckle. His entire body began to shake, allowing Ho to watch as those long, unnatural limbs began to stretch around the table. Ho, you do me a kindness to bring such mirth into my evening. Ho cleared his throat. I'm not joking, Yardoon. The spider-like creature suddenly ceased its laughter, and he leaned in, his eyes flashing red, his teeth bared, and emitting a sound that was more hiss than speech. And neither am I, you drunken fool. Ho made to stand, but found himself held in place by a thin, black, deceptively strong hand clutching his forearm. You will give us what you owe us, and you will do it after the tournament, as promised. Yardoon began to chuckle again. Or we shall see how you deliver your mercy blow. With no hands, with no feet, with no head. In a flurry of motion, Master Ho flipped his wrist and twisted his arm, freeing himself from Yardoon's grasp. You forget to whom you speak. I am Master Ho of Ravena's revered 7 masters, and the next time you make light of the mercy blow, I shall take it as a request for a demonstration. Ho steadied his hands, knowing just how closely he flew to the flame. And you forget who it is that you made a deal with. Yardoon receded back into the darkness, grinning wide as his broad, furry face was joined by 2 more, though neither seemed to share in Yardoon's jocularity. We are not some ineffectual proctors. We are not some soldiery bound by tradition and protocol. Yardoon folded in his limbs as his companions folded out theirs. Our kind was old before yours left your caves, and now, everywhere there is darkness, we lurk, we wait, we scheme, and we profit. We always profit. Yardoon's companions began to grin unnervingly. You might be able to fight us off. You might. But you will not like what waits for you in the darkness. You will not like what descends upon you in the midst of your drunken slumbers. Ho realized he had gone too far, and he delicately began to walk himself back from the brink. My students, they've been conscripted. Yardoon laughed. War. What a nasty, nasty business. And you You look down your noses at us. Master Ho continued. Without my students to compete, I cannot win the tournament. I can't get the prize money. That's how I was going to pay you. Yardoon rolled his eyes as his companions, no longer moving, disappeared into the darkness once again. Then you best figure out something else. Sell your school if you must. Now it was Master Ho's turn to laugh, a grim, sardonic outburst. Sell my school? My school is in my head and in the forest. I have nothing to sell. I have nothing. Yardoon spoke one final time as he leaned back, allowing the darkness to overtake him. Then you best win the tournament yourself. He sat sipping his wine, sparingly. He wished to throw the simple gourd back, to dump its contents into his parched gullet, to let the wine wash over him, to lose himself in a flood of that delicious elixir, to give himself over to the ecstasy of intoxication. But he could not. He could only afford a single gourd, and even that had taken the last of his coin and some shrewd bargaining. So shrewd, in fact, that the quality of the wine seemed a little off. But he sipped it, nonetheless, because what choice did he have? Master Ho had been backed into a corner, left with no other option, and so, with his fists and feet already wrapped, with his hair greased back out of his face, the preparations he always forced himself to do sober, he sat, cultivating his plan for the tournament, sipping his wine and watching as Ravana's revered masters spoke with one another upon the dais. The long table upon that raised platform, the platform that he should have been upon, the platform from which he should have judged the tournament, should have looked on proudly as his finest student, as Mouse decimated the competition. He should have beamed like a proud father as his technique, the distracting strike and the mercy blow, fell opponent after opponent after opponent. But instead, he did not sit upon the dais. Instead, he sat in the competitor's pen, sat upon a simple wooden stool amidst fighters that were barely half his age, some even less. Fighters that cut a wide berth around the frowning old man and his gourd full of cheap, pungent wine. What choice did he have? He had no choice. So he had abandoned his seat upon the dais, as Ravana's revered masters now abandoned theirs, and made their way toward him. Their walk was reluctant, their expressions somber. But while he wasn't drunk, while Master Ho was far, far away from the ecstasy of intoxication, he was tipsy enough to see the truth, tipsy enough to cut through the artifice and performance that the masters confronted him with. He could see through their masks of hesitant regret to find their true emotions. A savored moment of gleeful Schadenfreude. Master Ho, a moment, if you would. Master Hung spoke first, struggling to contain his joy, to repress a self-satisfied smile that struggled to stretch across his visage. Of course, Master Hung. He stood slowly, swaying slightly, affecting a level of drunkenness that he was yet far removed from. And what is it that I can do for you? The assembled masters circled around Ho, guiding him gently away from the younger fighters as Master Hung spoke in hushed tones. I regret to inform you that we must ask you. The snide, corpulent, jealous hack could no longer contain his triumph, or simply he stopped trying to mask it as his countenance took on an exuberant expression. We must ask you to leave. Master Ho scoffed and took a sip from his gourd, more for show than anything else. He could not afford to waste a drop of that precious nectar. Leave? Why, the tournament hasn't even started yet. He spoke loudly, gesturing back at the other fighters. Are you so scared of what I'll do to your students, Hung? Master Lu, eager to de-escalate the situation, to avoid a scene, spoke quickly, softly, and firmly. No, we are afraid of what you will do to us. We cannot allow you to compete in the tournament. Doing so would debase yourself, and by extension, he sighed sadly, us as well. Ho felt something deep, scalding and hateful growing in his gut. Not the warm, gentle heat of drunkenness. No, this was something far hotter and far, far more dangerous. This is absurd. The prohibition against masters competing is a custom, not a formal rule. You know that as well as I do, Lu. Ho raised his wrapped fist, and he extended a long finger directly at his fellow master, close enough to cause offense, but not so close as to constitute a challenge. Ho, be reasonable. It was Master Chan's turn to speak, as the 5 other masters simply nodded in silent agreement. You would make a mockery of all we've built, of all that we stand for. You have to see that. Ho snarled his response. All I see are a group of jealous incompetents. Lazy old men teaching the same techniques that lazy old men have been teaching for generations. His hands were beginning to shake. Too long without a drink. A real drink. A heavy drink that extended out to the lengths of his extremities. You've all been waiting for an opportunity to shame me, to unite against me. Master Lu placed a calming hand upon his shoulder. Please, Ho. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. You don't even have a school anymore. I never had a school. He clenched his fist around the gourd, feeling his fingers dig into the vegetable's hard, bumpy rind. Master Hung couldn't help himself, and he responded with the full force of the contempt for Ho that he had always made a token effort at concealing. No, you didn't, and we allowed it, though not a one of us appreciated being associated with a drunken vagrant. But now, he began to chuckle. Now you don't even have any students. Master Chan interposed himself between Ho and Hung, and for that at least, Ho was grateful. He could defeat Hung. He could defeat any of them individually. He could defeat all of them in succession. But together, all at once? Ho was unsure. But the uncertainty that bubbled within him also competed with another emotion. Rage. You are making a poor choice. A foolish choice. You can't be rid of me this easily. You know who I am. I am Master Ho of the distracting strike and the mercy blow, the creator of the 8-arm technique. I am one of Ravana's revered 7 masters. No, my friend. A voice spoke from the left. It was the oldest among them. Master Yip, that ancient, withered old man who now spoke sadly, with honest regret and tears filling his eyes. No, Ravana has only 6 masters now. Master Ho emptied his gourd before he even left the tournament hall. The wine, mixed with his sorrow, his depression, his desperation, it formed a potent concoction, one that sent him tumbling quickly, not into the ecstasy of intoxication, but into its torment. He began to beg for wine, for coin, for something he could sell for the second, or even better, the first. He begged anyone and everyone with slurred, aggressive speech. He had, at most, until the tournament was over, and he hoped to be as drunk as possible by then. And now, through the generosity of Ravana's populace, or perhaps their willingness to pay in order to keep that shouting, red-eyed lush away from them, Master Ho was well on his way. His head was swimming with regret and with rage and with wine by the time he collapsed into a darkened alley, resigned to wait out his grim fate amidst the filth and the vermin. But before he could drift off into a drunken stupor, he heard a hissing voice behind him. So considerate of you, Ho. Yardoon's sadistic smile emerged from the alley as he unfolded his long, unnerving limbs. I thought that I would have to seek you out, but you've proven yourself, if nothing else, a gentleman. Yardoon laughed, his entire profane form shaking in the darkness. Of sorts. Ho was drunk enough to know his fear intimately, but also he was drunk enough to ignore it. If you kill me, he belched, and then, immediately after, blew into Yardoon's broad, furry face. If you harm me at all, you will never get your money. Yardoon winced, and he recoiled at the foul stench that traveled upon Ho's breath. We already got our money, Ho. Something nefarious flashed in the creature's eyes. I don't understand. Yardoon raised himself up upon his spindly legs, shielding his eyes as he made a rare emergence from the darkness where he and all his kind felt most secure, where they were the most powerful. Your debt was purchased, and the buyer would have words with you. He followed Yardoon through the streets of Ravenna, the nighttime crowd scattering to make room for Ho's fearsome guide. He struggled to keep up with Yardoon's quick, long strides, the ones meant to propel him down the street to his goal and back into the darkness as quickly as possible. Master Ho couldn't speak, couldn't put words together as he struggled to keep his breath while also reining in his drunkenness, searching desperately for the level of intoxication this new status quo required of him. Before, he needed only to be drunk enough to die. But now he had no idea what he must contend with, what awaited him within the regal palanquin that Yardoon led him directly toward. So long, Ho. Yardoon grinned as he pulled back the curtains, revealing the palanquin's darkened interior. If you ever need another loan, come find me. Ho wished to lash out, wished to shove those gleaming white teeth down Yardoon's narrow, fur-covered throat. But he knew better. He knew that he had been granted a reprieve of unknown duration, and that attacking Yardoon, attacking any of his innumerable tribe, would do nothing to lengthen it. So he simply shot a scowl back at the creature as he awkwardly, drunkenly climbed into the palanquin's richly appointed compartment. And as he lowered himself down upon thick, luxurious cushions, as his glowing green eyes adjusted, as he took the measure of that tiny, portable room, he saw who awaited him. You. The correct address is My Lady. Hilarious stared out at him with a severe expression. But I will forgive your transgression, as it appears that you are not at your best. Ho racked his brain trying to make sense of where he was, of what faced him, of what the past few days had held. I don't What is the meaning of this? What have you done? Caleria sighed and took a sip from the steaming mug she held gingerly in both of her withered hands. I bought your debt, Ho. I have purchased you. Helpless anger, impotent rage began to fill Ho. You did this to me. You ruined me. You took my students, my school, my everything. Why? But Caleria ignored his ramblings. You now work for me. I doubt that you would like the alternative. In the future, I will have need of one such as yourself. You are talented, unassuming, and most importantly, you have nothing left to lose. Moving forward, however, I will expect you to come to me. She allowed her lips to turn upward in a slight smile. Why? Why have you done this? Why did you choose me? Hot, hateful tears began to stream down his tortured, oval face. Is it because it was fun? Was it fun for you? Because it was easy? Because I'm a drunk? Caleria shook her head slowly. No, you poor, poor fool. I chose you because you're the best. Ho shook his head, hoping to wake himself from this nightmare. So, what? What is it then? Am I now your soldier? Your errand boy? Your assassin? Caleria sipped from her mug once again. Perhaps all three, in time. But now, you are in no shape to do anything but sleep off your drunkenness and your shame. Stay healthy and ready. I require that all my weapons be kept sharp. The curtains to the palanquin were opened once again, this time by a pair of proctors. But as Ho, descending into a fugue of hopelessness, becoming as much an automaton as the despicable servants that now looked upon him with their sour expressions as he made for the curtain, Caleria spoke one final time. But Ho, I am curious. What need would have been so dire to prompt you to borrow money from your Dune? Caleria's question cut through the fog of Ho's distress, rousing him from his trance of despair. And when he turned to face Caleria, he did so with a clarity of vision, an uninhibited confidence, and an unmistakably fey glint in his eyes that shocked and startled the Lady of Ravenna. You bought my debt, not my confidence, my lady. Thanks for listening to this massive, ultra-long episode of SKALD. I am so thrilled to have a creative outlet that allows me complete and utter freedom. And I'm just as thrilled that more and more people are picking up what I'm laying down. To help me help more people find out about how awesome SKALD is, please leave a review, not just on iTunes, but on Amazon as well, for one of the show's numerous prose volumes. Pick one that doesn't have many reviews. This one comes from Johnny Hastings, who says, SKALD is great. A solid fantasy story that comes at us every week via the podcast. This Amazon item is the written version. I'm hooked and am tearing through the casts like nobody's business. In the old days, a skald would have someone who helped him pursue his art by paying him for the pleasure of listening to his tales. He would have a patron. And now, thanks to Patreon, you can go from being a fan of The Only Story That Matters to a patron, someone whose generosity makes it possible for this show to keep going strong. To sign up, head to patreon.com/skald today. This is the only way that I monetize the SKALD podcast, so it is crucial that you show your support. Every Tuesday morning, please tell everyone you know, and even people you don't know, about the only story that matters. If you tag me in a positive post about the show, I will always share or retweet it. Why? Because I am shameless. I'm Aubrey Sitterson on all social media, or just go to aubreysitterson.com for links to everything I've got going on, including my comics work and contact information. Most of the music I plug on this show comes from contemporary metal bands. That's kind of my lane. But this week, I want to tell you about pioneering psych rocker Rocky Erickson. Specifically, check out his album, The Evil One. I stumbled across it a couple weeks back, and it's been a near constant rotation because of its strange, tortured, groovy, frantic sound. If you love SKALD, you're going to dig Rocky Erickson. Thanks for listening. I'll talk at you next week.